Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that nothing around you has changed. Same deadlines, same traffic, same unpredictable people, yet everything inside you feels different. The tension that once hijacked your heartbeat now rolls off like distant thunder. Distractions that used to pull you in every direction lose their gravity, and every breath arrives as a quiet declaration. I am unmoved. That transformation isn't luck, nor is it a sudden gift handed down by fate. It's the product of deliberate mental shifts, 12 ancient yet evergreen pivots in perception that turn chaos into clarity and noise into nuanced focus. The Stoics called it living in accordance with nature, but in practical terms, it's the art of mastering what happens between stimulus and response. Because once the mind is trained to stand still, the world can do nothing to shake it. In the minutes ahead, we're going to journey through each of those 12 mindset shifts, one deliberate turn at a time, so you can anchor your day in unbreakable calm, channel your focus like a laser on what truly matters, and meet every challenge not with panic, but with purpose. This isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming sovereign over the only kingdom you truly control, your inner world. If you're ready to step out of the frantic current and into steady, self-directed waters, let's begin. 1. Your inner world shapes your outer response. It's easy to believe that the problem is always out there, the rude coworker, the delayed flight, the partner who doesn't understand you. Most people walk through life thinking they are victims of what happens to them, not realizing that the real battlefield is inside. What shakes you is not the event, but your relationship to it. Your response, your perception, your inner filter. That's where the storm is born. That's where it's either tamed or allowed to grow wild. The Stoics understood this with remarkable clarity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That line, if truly understood, changes everything. It places the responsibility, and therefore the power, squarely back in your hands, because if it's your estimate, your interpretation, your inner state, then it's your responsibility to refine it. And the more refined your inner world, the less control the outer world has over you. Think about it. How often do we wake up already under siege? The notifications, the rush, the minor inconveniences that somehow feel personal, as if the universe is conspiring to frustrate us. But in reality, nothing external can disturb you without your consent. That consent is given silently, through unexamined thoughts, automatic reactions, and the belief that you must respond to everything. You don't. And the moment you internalize that truth, you begin to reclaim the energy that was leaking from your life. To shape your inner world doesn't mean suppressing feelings or pretending that nothing affects you. That's not Stoicism, that's denial. True Stoic practice is about acknowledging your emotions fully, observing them without letting them rule, and responding with intention instead of instinct. When anger rises, the Stoic doesn't deny it. He watches it. He listens. He asks, what triggered this? Is it worthy of a response? Is this about them or about me? Over time, that practice becomes a filter, an internal firewall. You begin to notice when someone else's negativity tries to invade your peace. Recognize when you're being baited into conflict. And instead of reacting, you pause, you breathe, you assess. That pause, that sacred space between stimulus and response, becomes your superpower. It's where your calm lives. It's where your clarity has room to speak. And the beauty of this inner cultivation is that it creates a ripple effect. When your mind is still, your presence shifts. You stop escalating situations. You stop matching the chaos around you. You become the calm in the room. And what once drained you, arguments, drama, distractions, now passes through you like wind through open hands. You are no longer entangled. You are observing, not absorbing. But don't mistake stillness for weakness. The person who controls their inner world is not passive. They are precise. Their strength is measured not by their volume, but by their command of attention. While others waste energy reacting to every trigger, the Stoic conserves that energy for what truly matters. He lives deliberately, not defensively. So if you want to become calm, focused, and unshakable, don't start by changing your job, your city, or your relationships. Start by changing your inner posture. Rebuild the lens through which you see the world. Ask yourself, what belief is causing me pain right now? What interpretation is fueling my stress? What thought am I giving power to that doesn't serve me? And when you find the answer, don't judge it. Just notice, just shift, just choose again. Because the real victory isn't in changing what happens. It's in becoming the kind of person who is no longer moved by it. 2. Emotion is a messenger, not a master. One of the greatest shifts a person can make, and one of the most liberating, is to stop being enslaved by emotion and start learning from it instead. Most people move through life like leaves in a storm, blown around by every gust of feeling, anger, sadness, jealousy, fear. They obey every emotional wave as if it were a command. But the Stoic doesn't live like that. The Stoic listens to emotion, but does not kneel before it. He treats emotion as information, not instruction. This distinction changes everything, because emotions are not your enemy. They are signals. Anger might reveal where you've been violated. Sadness might point to something you've lost that matters deeply. Jealousy may uncover an unmet desire or an unhealed wound. These emotions are not to be ignored, nor to be blindly followed, but to be understood. The modern world either idolizes emotion or suppresses it entirely, but the Stoic way is different: to observe without attachment, to feel without becoming. Imagine this. You get a message on your phone that says, "Your boundaries were crossed." Would you immediately rage at the sender, or would you read the message, understand the context, and decide how to respond? That's what emotion is. A message, not a master. When you start treating your emotions like this, you begin to gain back one of the most powerful forces in your life: agency. You are no longer reactive. You are responsive. Seneca said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay, not denial." Delay. That pause is everything. That pause is where the transformation happens. That pause is where you examine, breathe, and choose. Because while you can't always choose what you feel, you can always choose what you do next. And in that space between emotion and action lies your freedom. But let's be clear, becoming emotionally intelligent doesn't mean becoming cold or robotic. It means you stop being ruled by internal chaos. It means you remain kind, not because you suppress your pain, but because you refuse to spread it. It means you allow yourself to cry, but not to collapse. It means you allow anger to knock on your door, but you don't let it run your home. Emotions are honored guests. They are not kings. And the more you practice this, the more others notice something different in you. You become the one who doesn't flinch under pressure, who doesn't snap when provoked, who doesn't melt in the presence of judgment. There's a strength in that presence, a gravity, and people begin to trust you more, not just because of what you say, but because of how grounded you are when things get hard. Think about your own life. How often have you said something in anger, only to regret it moments later? How often have you made a decision in fear that limited you for years? Every moment you obeyed emotion blindly, you handed over your power. But the moment you begin to pause, to reflect, to ask, what is this emotion trying to show me? That's the moment you begin to evolve. And evolution isn't loud. It doesn't shout, "Look how calm I am." It simply shows up in how you carry yourself, in how you speak, in what you no longer respond to. Your silence becomes wisdom. Your restraint becomes confidence. Your control becomes peace. So the next time emotion rises, don't suppress it. Don't obey it. Just witness it. Ask, "What are you here to teach me?" Then respond with the quiet, steady power of someone who has learned to master their inner world. 3. Discomfort is where transformation begins. Most people spend their lives running from anything that feels hard. We avoid the awkward conversation, the early morning wake-up, the lonely silence after a breakup, or the sharp sting of self-confrontation. We scroll, distract, numb, because discomfort feels like danger. But what if that discomfort was actually the doorway to your next evolution? What if pain wasn't an enemy, but a passage? This is where the Stoic mindset changes everything. Because to the Stoic, discomfort isn't a signal to escape. It's a sign to pay attention. It means you're being invited to grow. No great strength is ever built in comfort. No deep clarity ever arrives in distraction. Look at any meaningful achievement, physical, emotional, spiritual, and at its root, you'll find a willingness to stay present through discomfort. The weightlifter doesn't grow because the weight is light. The philosopher doesn't find truth by only exploring what's easy. The person who truly transforms is the one who stops asking, "How can I avoid this pain?" and starts asking, "What is this pain asking me to become?" In today's world, we are conditioned to pursue ease, instant food, instant pleasure, instant success. We're told that struggle is a sign something is wrong, when in fact, it may be the clearest evidence that something important is unfolding. Discomfort is not a sign of failure. It's the terrain of transformation. And the one who learns to walk through it with eyes wide open becomes someone very difficult to shake. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself in Meditations, "Is your cucumber bitter? Then throw it away. Are there brambles in your path? Then go around them. That is enough. Do not add to your troubles by imagining them." His message is clear. Don't amplify discomfort and don't fear it. Face it, feel it, and move through it. But let's go deeper. Discomfort is not just about external challenges. Sometimes it's the internal pressure that feels most unbearable. The truth you've been avoiding, the parts of yourself you've buried. And facing those can feel like walking into fire. But fire doesn't only destroy, it also refines. You don't become strong by avoiding your weaknesses. You become strong by stepping into them with honesty and courage. Think of a time when you grew the most in your life. It probably didn't come during a season of ease. It came when things were difficult, when you were forced to sit with your pain, to ask better questions, to rise in ways you didn't know you could. And if you're in that place right now, confused, lost, stretched thin, maybe you're not failing, maybe you're being shaped. But shaping takes time. Fire works slowly, and the Stoic knows that this process cannot be rushed. So when discomfort comes, don't wish it away. Stay with it. Breathe through it. Let it teach you what comfort never could. Because comfort doesn't build muscle, it preserves weakness. and no one becomes unshakable by preserving what keeps them small. Your calm won't come from escaping discomfort. It will come from being able to sit with it, fully awake, fully alive, without breaking. That's resilience. That's inner power. That's where the transformation really begins. 4. Discipline is the art of self-respect. Most people think of discipline as restriction, a cold set of rules that removes joy from life, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Discipline, when understood through the lens of Stoic wisdom, isn't about punishment, it's about alignment. It's the practice of treating your future self with dignity. It's saying, I respect myself enough not to abandon what matters for what's easy. And that shift, from force to reverence, is where real power begins. The undisciplined mind lives in a constant tug-of-war, pulled by every craving, every impulse, every fleeting distraction. And each time you surrender to that pull, something within you grows weaker. Not just your willpower, but your trust in yourself. You begin to doubt your own promises. You say you'll wake up early, but you don't. You say you'll cut off that toxic habit, but it lingers. You say you'll change, but comfort keeps seducing you back into patterns you've outgrown. And slowly, you begin to believe that your word doesn't mean much, even to yourself. But when discipline enters the picture, everything changes. It becomes the quiet, consistent force that begins to rewire your identity. When you choose the gym over the couch, the journal over the scroll, the solitude over the chaos, not because someone's watching, but because you said you would, you begin to reclaim your self-respect. That's what makes discipline sacred. It restores the bond between intention and action, between thought and execution, between who you say you are and how you live. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And what is discipline if not a chosen adversity? A chance to prove yourself to yourself, to live deliberately rather than reactively. In a world obsessed with ease, discipline is the quiet rebellion. It says, I will not be ruled by impulse. It says, I'm building something, even if no one else sees it yet. But discipline doesn't mean perfection. You will slip. You will fall. The Stoic doesn't seek to never stumble. He seeks to stand up faster, to return quicker, to stay loyal to the path even when it's messy. Discipline is not rigidity. It's rhythm, a return to your higher self, again and again, through repeated intentional acts. It's not about having your life together every day. It's about not abandoning yourself on the days you don't. Look at those you admire, not for their talent, but for their character. What sets them apart? It's not motivation. Motivation fades. It's not inspiration. That comes and goes. It's discipline, the daily, often invisible choices that compound into something powerful. That's why the Stoic ties discipline to virtue, not because it looks impressive from the outside, but because it builds strength from the inside. So the next time you're tempted to skip what you know matters, stop and ask, what am I really choosing here, ease or respect? The temporary comfort of avoidance or the long-term strength of alignment? One makes you feel good for a moment. The other builds a self you can trust for a lifetime. Discipline is not restriction, it's freedom. The freedom to move through life with integrity, knowing that your actions mirror your values. It's the most quiet, powerful form of self-love. And when practiced daily, it becomes not just a habit, but a way of being. The way of the unshakable. 5. Your identity is shaped by what you repeat. Most people believe identity is something you discover, like a treasure buried somewhere deep inside, waiting to be found. But that belief is misleading. Identity isn't found, it's forged. Not in one grand gesture, but in the thousands of small, repetitive choices you make every single day. What you do consistently becomes who you are, and that's both the burden and the beauty of it. You don't wake up one day with self-respect, clarity, or calmness. You cultivate it, quietly, over time, through repetition. You write because you want to be a writer. You train because you want to be strong. You meditate not because you're already Zen, but because you're becoming someone who can remain still in the storm. Each act is not just a task, it's a vote for the kind of person you're building. And over time, those votes compound into identity. But the same rule applies in reverse. Every time you say yes to distractions, you're not just wasting time, you're reinforcing a version of yourself that avoids commitment. Every time you break a promise to yourself, even in silence, you're whispering to your own mind, "I can't be trusted," and the mind listens. It remembers. Your repeated actions become the architecture of your character, whether or not you're paying attention. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You become what you give your attention to." He wasn't talking about a single moment of focus. He meant the ongoing direction of your energy. What you practice, you become. And if you practice envy, comparison, avoidance, or chaos, you can't be surprised when your identity starts to fracture. But if you practice patience, clarity, strength, and presence, even in small doses, those traits become your default. Think of it like water dripping on stone. One drop seems meaningless, but repeated over time, it carves valleys. Your habits do the same. That's why the Stoic doesn't chase results. He focuses on rhythm, on the sacredness of the daily, because he knows that showing up today, even when it's hard, even when no one sees it, is how he builds the man he'll respect tomorrow. There's power in this shift, because it removes the illusion that change is out of your hands. You don't need to wait for inspiration. You don't need to wait for clarity. You just need to choose the next right action, and do it again, and again, and again. You don't become focused by accident. You don't become calm by reading about it. You earn it through repetition, when no one is watching, and when it gets boring, that's when it starts working. True transformation doesn't feel dramatic. It feels steady, mundane, repetitive. That's why most people never get there. They think repetition is stagnation, when in truth, it's the only path to mastery. So ask yourself, what are you repeating every day? Not what you hope to be, but what you're actually doing. Because that's what you're becoming, not your goals, not your thoughts, but your habits. You are, at your core, a mirror of your repetitions. If that feels sobering, good, it should, because it means you have power, not tomorrow, but now, in this hour, with this action. And when you commit to showing up with purpose again and again, you don't just change what you do, you change who you are. 6. Let go of the illusion of control. One of the hardest truths to accept, and yet the most liberating once understood, is this: most of life is outside your control. The weather, the market, the thoughts of others, the behavior of a friend, the outcome of a conversation, even your own body at times does not bend to your will. And yet, we spend so much of our lives clinging to this illusion, believing, hoping, sometimes demanding, that if we try hard enough, plan thoroughly enough, or worry intensely enough, we can make things go our way. But the Stoic doesn't waste his strength on fantasy. He lives in alignment with nature, not in opposition to it. He recognizes that reality, no matter how unfair or unpredictable, is not an enemy to defeat, but a force to understand and adapt to. To accept this doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop breaking yourself against walls that will never move. Epictetus taught, "Some things are up to us, and some are not." That single line carries enough wisdom to change an entire life. Because once you separate what is yours from what isn't, your choices from their opinions, your effort from the result, you reclaim energy you never realized you were wasting. You begin to see clearly where your power lies, not in managing the storm, but in steering your ship through it. Think of all the stress, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion that comes from trying to control outcomes. You send a message and wait for a reply. You prepare for a meeting and spiral over how they'll perceive you. You make a decision and then torture yourself over what others might think of it. None of that is control. It's self-inflicted suffering. And the more you try to grip life with closed fists, the more it slips through your fingers. The Stoic chooses a different path. He learns to open his hands, not in surrender, but in wisdom. He takes full ownership of what is his intentions, his actions, his values, and he lets go of everything else, not out of weakness, but out of clarity. The paradox is that by releasing control over what you can't influence, you gain more control over what truly matters: your mind, your behavior, your character. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means giving your full attention to what is actually within reach. You can't control how others love you, but you can control how you love them. You can't guarantee success, but you can control your effort. You can't erase pain, but you can control how you carry it. And that shift, from outcome obsession to inner mastery, is where freedom begins. Life will always throw curveballs. That doesn't mean you failed. That doesn't mean you're cursed. It means you're human. And your task isn't to predict the future. It's to meet it with strength. A Stoic walks into each day like a warrior walking into unknown terrain. He doesn't expect the path to be smooth. He prepares to respond with calm, no matter what terrain he finds beneath his feet. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, anxious, or paralyzed by uncertainty, stop and ask, am I focusing on what's mine or what isn't? Am I wasting energy on what I wish would happen, or directing my power toward what I can influence right now? That question, asked often enough, becomes a compass. Because peace doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from realizing you don't have to. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. The kind of wisdom that doesn't panic when life changes direction, because you know your anchor is not in outcomes, it's in your response. 7. What you tolerate, you invite. Every time you stay silent when your peace is violated, every time you laugh off a disrespectful comment just to keep the peace, every time you compromise your values to avoid discomfort, you are not just enduring, you are training the world how to treat you. Tolerance is not neutral, it's not passive, it's a signal to others and to yourself. And that signal says either this is acceptable or this stops here. Many people confuse tolerance with strength. They think enduring what hurts them is noble, that keeping quiet when mistreated is maturity. But Stoicism was never about swallowing pain silently. It was about recognizing what serves your soul and having the discipline to protect it. What you allow, even once, you begin to normalize, and what you normalize, you begin to become. Seneca said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire," meaning you hesitate to set boundaries because you fear loss of love, loss of approval, loss of comfort. But in doing so, you act like you have forever to correct what that tolerance erodes, your integrity. You don't. Every moment you allow something that dishonors your inner peace, you invite it deeper into your life. And over time, it becomes the atmosphere you breathe. This isn't just about toxic people. It's about the subtle agreements you make with yourself every day. You tolerate your own excuses. You tolerate procrastination. You tolerate the voice in your head that says, "I'll start tomorrow," or "It's not that bad," or "At least I'm not like them." These tolerances repeated become habits, and habits, unchallenged, shape identity. So the Stoic doesn't wait for a breaking point. He adjusts early, firmly, quietly. He doesn't yell, he doesn't blame, he doesn't make a show of boundaries. He becomes them. There's a dignity in that kind of inner firmness, a power that comes not from domination, but from self-respect. And when others see that, truly see it, they either rise to meet your standard or fall away from your life. Both outcomes serve your growth. Ask yourself, what have you been tolerating lately? Is it a draining relationship, a disrespectful tone, an unhealthy routine that slowly chips away at your energy and focus? Be honest, not to shame yourself, but to awaken. Awareness is the first act of power, and the second, refusal. Because tolerance is cumulative. It builds, it echoes, it teaches your subconscious what you believe you deserve. And when you finally decide to stop tolerating what disrespects your peace, not with anger, not with drama, but with unwavering clarity, you reclaim more than boundaries. You reclaim your self-worth. The Stoic path is not paved with noise. It's shaped by quiet decisions made in the face of subtle disrespects. The decision to speak truthfully, to say no without guilt, to walk away from chaos without needing to explain. These are not acts of rebellion. They are acts of remembering who you are and refusing to let that memory fade under the weight of toleration. So the next time life asks you to lower your standards just to keep something, ask yourself, what am I really keeping, and at what cost? 8. Speak less, mean more. In a world obsessed with volume, the Stoic speaks with weight. Not loudness, not frequency, but clarity. In today's noise-driven culture, where everyone seems to be performing, online, in conversations, in meetings, silence has become more than golden. It's powerful, rare, and paradoxically, the quieter you become, the more others lean in to hear what truly matters. Speaking less isn't about withdrawal. It's not avoidance. It's intentional restraint, a conscious decision to choose substance over noise. The untrained mind speaks to fill silence. The trained mind speaks to honor it. The Stoic doesn't seek attention. He seeks precision. His words are like tools, not thrown, but placed carefully, not used to impress, but to express truth with discipline. Think of the times you've said something impulsively and regretted it. The angry reply, the defensive explanation, the unnecessary comment just to prove a point. In each case, speaking more didn't solve the problem. It amplified it. Words, once spoken, cannot be recalled. They are like arrows loosed from a bow. They will land somewhere, whether intended or not. That's why Stoics practiced what we might call verbal minimalism. They measured their words the way a jeweler handles diamonds, with care, with respect, with reverence. They understood that language, when used thoughtfully, becomes a vessel for wisdom. But when used carelessly, it becomes a weapon against your own peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." That principle applies to speech as well. The more we feel the need to explain ourselves, to be understood by everyone, to fill every moment with commentary, the more control we actually surrender. Because in those moments we are not speaking to serve truth. We are speaking to soothe insecurity. But when you pause, when you hold your words back for a moment longer, something shifts. Your speech becomes rooted, not reactive. You begin to notice what doesn't need to be said. You develop an internal filter, one sharpened not by fear of saying the wrong thing, but by respect for your own mind. You realize that silence isn't a void to fear, it's a canvas. A space where clarity can take form before chaos gets a chance. This kind of restraint builds presence. People start to feel your words before you say them. They sense your calm, your discernment, and that calm, that steady quietness, becomes your signature. The world begins to trust that when you speak, you've already thought it through. And that trust, it's earned, not claimed. So speak less, but mean more. Let your words be few, but your presence strong. Ask yourself before you speak, does this need to be said? Does it add peace or tension, truth or noise? Will I still mean this in an hour, in a day, in a year? A single well-placed word can build a bridge. A careless sentence can burn one down. Don't waste your power chasing attention. Channel it into precision. 9. Comparison poisons the mind. It starts quietly, almost invisibly. You scroll past a success story, a smiling face, a highlight reel. Someone bought a house, someone lost weight, someone started a business. You don't even notice it at first, but something in you begins to tighten. You start measuring your own timeline against theirs. You were fine 5 minutes ago. Now, you feel behind. This is how comparison works, not as a conscious decision, but as a silent toxin. And the Stoic knows this well, because comparison is not just unfair, it's delusional. You're comparing the internal chaos of your full, complicated life with the external polish of someone else's edited moment. It's not a match. It's a mirage. Yet we do it anyway. Why? Because deep down, we're looking for a compass, a sense that we're okay, that we're making progress, that we matter. But when that compass starts pointing outward, we lose direction inward. You begin shaping your goals, not based on what aligns with your soul, but based on what earns approval. You begin walking someone else's path, hoping it'll lead to your own destination. It never does. The Stoic path is different. It asks you to step out of the race entirely, to put down the scoreboard. Because progress to a Stoic is not a performance, it's a practice. It's not about where others are. It's about who you are, and who you were yesterday. The only valid comparison is, am I more centered than I was a week ago? Am I making choices today that my past self would be proud of? Seneca once said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." But in the modern world, we look at those who seem to have it easy, the effortless wins, the rapid success. And we forget, their path is not your test. Their speed is not your value. Your struggle may be your sharpening, and if you abandon it to chase an illusion, you lose the very lessons meant to shape you. Comparison also blinds you to your own blessings. When you're fixated on someone else's win, you overlook your own growth. You forget that last year you would have begged for the problems you have today. You forget that your current peace, your current discipline, your current mindset are all victories, hard-won and deeply personal. There's another danger. Comparison breeds resentment. It distorts how you view others. Instead of seeing their achievements with respect, you see them as threats. And that bitterness, it doesn't hurt them. It drains you. It turns your energy outward, into judgment, envy, distraction, instead of inward, into growth. But here's the truth. No one can live your life better than you. No one else has your exact combination of pain, passion, mistakes, strengths, scars, and dreams. Your journey is unrepeatable, which means your timing is sacred. Your path is not late. It's tailored. Every detour, every delay, every heartbreak, it's not random. It's shaping something in you that can't be mass-produced. So the next time comparison creeps in, stop and return to yourself. Return to your journal, your values, your breathing, your vision. Return to the work, the silence, the sacred rhythm of becoming. And remember, no one who's truly focused on their own path has time to envy another's. The Stoic doesn't compete. He cultivates. He doesn't crave what others have. He honors what he's building, one choice at a time. 10. Stillness is strength. In a world that equates motion with meaning and busyness with worth, stillness has become almost rebellious. We're constantly told to move, to chase, to react, to respond. Every second is filled with noise, with updates, with alerts, with the next thing. The modern mind has become addicted to motion, and yet the Stoic knew that true power often reveals itself not in doing more, but in doing nothing. Stillness is not laziness, it's not apathy, it's not withdrawal. Stillness is presence without panic. It's observation without immediate reaction. It's the ability to sit with your thoughts, your emotions, your impulses, and not be ruled by them. In a reactive world, the man who can remain still, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, becomes a mountain in a world of leaves blown by every wind. Picture a storm. Trees bend, leaves scatter, chaos rules the air. But at the center of the hurricane, there's a place called the eye, perfectly calm. That's what stillness is. It's not the absence of pressure. It's the refusal to be pulled by it. This kind of inner stillness requires strength, because it's far easier to react than to reflect. It's easier to speak than to pause. It's easier to scroll than to sit in silence. The untrained mind runs. It runs from discomfort, from uncertainty, from emptiness. But the trained mind walks, and often it sits. The Stoics practiced stillness like a discipline. Marcus Aurelius would retreat inward even while leading an empire. Epictetus, despite being a slave, found freedom in choosing how to respond. Seneca wrote his deepest letters, not in the frenzy of success, but in moments of deep contemplation. To them, stillness was a sword, not a seat. Why does this matter now more than ever? Because we're overstimulated and under-reflective. We jump from reaction to reaction, news, messages, headlines, comparison, judgment, until our minds become echo chambers of everyone else's noise. And in all that volume, we lose the one voice that actually matters, our own. Stillness allows that voice to return. It's in stillness that you hear the quiet truths, that a decision you've been rushing into doesn't align with your values, that the person you keep pleasing is actually harming your peace, that the path you've been walking isn't taking you anywhere you want to go. Stillness is not the place you escape to. It's the place where your real self lives, the one behind the masks, the one before the noise, and the strength that grows there. It's unshakable, because when you're no longer controlled by urgency, you're no longer controlled by manipulation. You can't be baited into drama. You can't be pressured into decisions. You become the kind of person who pauses before acting, listens before speaking, reflects before judging. In that pause, that breath, that silence, lies your power. Because in stillness, you don't just observe the world, you observe yourself, your habits, your desires, your ego, and once you see clearly, you can act from wisdom instead of impulse. That's where strength is born, not in movement, but in mastery. So make time for stillness. Daily, even if the world around you is chaotic, especially then. Wake up 10 minutes earlier to sit in silence. Take a walk without your phone. Breathe. Listen, not to reply, not to solve, just to be. Because stillness isn't the absence of action, it's the source of wise action. It doesn't slow you down. It centers you, sharpens you, so that when you do move, you move with intention. Let the world rush. Let it demand. Let it spin. You remain grounded, not because you don't feel, but because you don't flinch. 11. Forgiveness is liberation. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. Some think it means forgetting, others believe it's weakness. Many confuse it with permission, as if by letting go, we're somehow validating what was done to us. But the Stoic sees it differently. To the wise mind, forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about you, your clarity, your freedom, your peace. Because the truth is, resentment is a heavy thing to carry. It doesn't stay in one corner of your life. It bleeds into everything. You wake up thinking about what happened. You rehearse the betrayal in your mind while eating, working, even smiling. The pain becomes part of your identity, and with time, it hardens into bitterness, into cynicism, into mistrust. But worst of all, it steals your present. The Stoics would ask, if someone wronged you once, why let them wrong you every day through memory? Epictetus reminds us, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. When you keep replaying what happened, you're not just remembering, you're reviving. You're dragging an old wound into every moment and expecting it to heal while it's still being picked at. Forgiveness is not a gift to the offender. It's an act of self-respect. You're choosing not to let someone's immaturity poison your clarity. You're choosing not to let their failure define your future. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean you trust them again. It simply means you've decided to stop bleeding from a wound that someone else no longer remembers causing. And here's where the Stoic insight goes deeper. They teach us to examine our own role, not to blame ourselves, but to understand. Did we stay too long in a situation that showed signs of danger? Did we ignore our intuition out of hope, fear, or pride? Did we project ideals onto someone who had no intention of living up to them? Forgiveness allows us to answer these questions not from shame, but from wisdom. Seneca once wrote, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." Holding on to anger is exactly that, suffering more than the moment required. The event passed, but you stay imprisoned in it, thinking the bars are justice, when in reality they're self-imposed. When you truly forgive, you reclaim your emotional energy. Energy that was once consumed by rage is now available for growth. Space that was occupied by pain is now clear for peace. Forgiveness opens the door to healing and, more importantly, to perspective. You realize that people can only act from the level of awareness they have. That doesn't excuse them, but it explains them. And sometimes understanding is more powerful than revenge. This is not easy, especially when the wound is deep, especially when the person was close. But the depth of your pain only reflects the depth of your heart, and that heart deserves freedom. You deserve to walk lightly, not dragging the weight of what can't be undone. So forgive, not quickly, not blindly, but bravely. Forgive because your soul is too important to be shackled to resentment, Forgive because the future calls you, and it has no room for passengers tied to the past. Forgive, not because they changed, but because you are changing. That is liberation. That is Stoic strength. 12. Confidence comes from congruence. Confidence is not what you show to the world. It's what you whisper to yourself in the dark. It's not built by applause or admiration or titles. It's built quietly, day after day, through the alignment between what you believe and how you live. That's what the Stoics understood better than most. That true self-respect is not inherited, not gifted, not found, but earned. Earned by consistency, by integrity, by the quiet promise kept to yourself when no one's watching. You see, many chase confidence like it's a mask to wear. They decorate it with borrowed quotes, curated images, loud declarations. But it's hollow, because deep down they know they're not living what they're preaching. They say they value discipline, but they negotiate every morning with the snooze button. They say they value peace, but they answer every provocation with rage. That disconnect is where insecurity festers, not because they're flawed, but because their life lacks congruence. Congruence means alignment between thought and word, between word and deed, between who you say you are and who you actually show up as. When these align, confidence doesn't need to be forced. It becomes a natural result. Like a tree that stands tall, not because it tries, but because its roots are deep and its trunk is straight. Think of someone you truly admire, not for their style or popularity, but for their presence. What makes them magnetic? It's not noise, it's quiet certainty, a sense that they are the same person in public and in private, that they don't need to explain their values because they live them. That's the kind of person people respect. And more importantly, that's the kind of person respects himself. The Stoics didn't chase image, they chased truth. They understood that reputation is what others think of you, but character is what you know about yourself. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but wrote in his private journal as a student of virtue. Epictetus, born a slave, carried himself like a king because he knew his mind was his domain, and he governed it with clarity. Their confidence didn't come from others' approval, it came from self-congruence. So how do you build this kind of confidence? You start small. You make one promise to yourself, and you keep it. You speak kindly to yourself, and stop tolerating self-sabotage disguised as humor. You stop chasing goals that don't align with your values, no matter how attractive they look from the outside. You let go of people who make you shrink, not because you're bitter, but because your spirit needs space to breathe. Each act of alignment, waking up when you said you would, finishing what you started, honoring your word, walking away from what no longer reflects who you're becoming, adds weight to your presence. Not in a loud way, but in a grounded way. You don't need to scream, "I'm enough," when your actions already prove it. This is the path of the calm, focused, unshakable mind. Not perfection, but practice. Not ego, but embodiment. Because in the end, the person who truly believes in himself doesn't need to convince anyone else. He simply lives in a way that makes doubt unnecessary. And that right there is the unspoken power of congruence. There comes a moment in every journey where the pursuit of more must give way to the practice of less. Less noise, less reaction, less pretending. Because what we truly crave isn't to be louder in the world, but quieter in ourselves. That's what Stoicism offers. Not a rule book, but a mirror. Not a doctrine, but a discipline of presence. And if there's one thing these 12 mindset shifts teach us, it's this: The real transformation doesn't happen in public. It happens in the quiet choices you make when no one is watching, when you pause instead of react, when you speak with intention instead of impulse, when you walk away not to prove a point, but to protect your peace. Being calm in a chaotic world isn't apathy, it's strength. It's a form of rebellion against the culture of urgency and outrage, and being focused in a distracted world is not luck. It's a practice, a refusal to hand your attention to things that don't serve your soul. These shifts are not overnight changes. They are daily, silent revolutions, a slow turning inward, a deepening, a remembering. So if you felt even one of these truths resonate, hold on to it, not as inspiration, but as a standard. Let your life become the proof that wisdom still matters, that inner work still wins, that peace is not passive, it's earned. And as always, if this message moved you in any way, share it with someone who needs stillness more than advice. Subscribe if you haven't yet, not just to hear more, but to become more. And remember, you don't need to control the world to be unshakable. You just need to master your response to it. Until next time, stay anchored and stay free.